Okay, so turns out that in preparation for Disney and Pixar to try to stage their triumphant return to the top of the mountain in terms of their place on the hierarchy of the animation industry, DreamWorks just casually decided they were also going to have a banger year. They released Orion in the Dark, which I personally didn't like, but at the same time, I try not to be too delusional, and I can accept that it got good reviews and a lot of viewership, so, it did well, I was the outlier. And then we have Kung Fu Panda 4 on the horizon, even though the release date in Australia is way after the USA release, which, isn't that just a peach? Ugh. Staggered releases are so stupid. And then we got a trailer for this movie, The Wild Robot, which is apparently based on a book series, but I've never heard of it. Doesn't have a Wikipedia page either, so... Not sure if it's a massively prominent piece of literature, but, apparently it is a New York Times bestseller and won a few awards. I still haven't heard of it, although that doesn't really matter as long as it's good. And since they are making a movie based on it and all, it must have been big somewhat. Is it a popular kids book maybe? I honestly don't know. But that's what I've gathered from a bunch of comments on YouTube on the trailer anyhow. But yeah, I'd never heard of this thing, and the trailer came out of nowhere for me and just blew me away. And so I figured I'd do a little bit of digging before I got into things, to see if it would be any good and do well. After all, we're currently in an era where it seems like the world is far more eager for animated sequels than they are for the original content. Either that or they just want the big name franchise adaptations like Super Mario Bros. So it did have me a little bit worried at first, but then I did some digging. To the director, Chris Sanders, he's released some good stuff. Lilo and Stitch, a classic. How to Train Your Dragon, the first one, another classic. The Croods, I've never seen that, but it did well for itself in terms of reviews and money. So I think the film itself, in terms of directing, it's in good hands. He also wrote it as well, and since he wrote the three I mentioned earlier, looks like he has a strong resume. But on top of that, the voice cast is stacked. My God. Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Catherine O'Hara, Bill Nighy, Mark Hamill has a role. My God, they're just throwing money at the wall. And those are just the biggest names. There's other people too. Wonder what the budget for this bad boy is. Hope it makes it back. Seems like it could be expensive. But yeah, it seems like they have a good creative team, and on top of that, a good voice cast. I don't really know how they're going to perform, as we haven't had much dialogue or anything in the trailer itself, but still I'm quite excited about everything. And honestly, I think I was a little bit surprised at the end of the trailer that they even had a cast listed to begin with. I'd started to suspect over the course of the trailer that it was going to be a film with very, very, very minimal dialogue. And I actually kind of got hyped up by that fact. When was the last time we actually saw an animated movie that doesn't lean heavily on the performances, that doesn't lean heavily on the big names, and was mostly using visual storytelling alone to get across the narrative to the audience? I feel like if done well, it would be one of those revolutionary films that people would talk about forever. And maybe this will still be one of those movies, but I think it would have been cool nonetheless. But regardless, this film looks pretty amazing, and I am hoping it does well. I'm so eager for some new standalone films to blow up and do well for themselves in the animated world because, we're staring down the barrel of another era of sequels at the moment. So you want a little bit more variety, at least I do. Because if you're not planting the seeds for future franchises, eventually you're going to run out, aren't you? So yeah, I was going into this trailer pretty much blind. I'd read the synopsis on the film on Wikipedia, the advertising blurb, but only after I'd watched the trailer for the first time, and it wowed me. For starters, really fun that there was no dialogue, just a lot of atmosphere being built and telling a story visually. And of course, set to a cover of What a Wonderful World. I don't know, it was a magical experience. And it drew me in so quickly, and I was really impressed that without any talking, they were able to pretty much completely convey the message in that little synopsis. I've honestly never seen this approach to a trailer from a major animation studio before, so it was pretty cool. And the more you watch it, the more it just gives you chills. The trailer begins with Rossum 7134, or Roz, being washed up on the shore of an island where she's discovered by a family of otters who accidentally turn her on, and thus begins her journey of growth and exploration in the wild. Okay, so immediately this trailer had me in a good mood. For some reason, the robot reminded me of the Portal video game, which, made me feel rather nostalgic. And I also really enjoyed the animation style. They don't go the full photorealistic way, and they don't go full cartoon either. They managed to find a happy medium that looks really unique. I don't know, it just legit feels like a storybook, which given the source material, I feel like is probably a good thing. Hopefully it really invokes the book in a positive way for those that read it. And then we have the music kick in, and we start to witness Roz's journey from fresh robot to something more. And yeah, it was all very beautiful, all very mesmerizing from the get-go, but I think for me, whilst I was invested early on, it wasn't until she'd walked through a few of the scenes, and we arrive at this shot where she's overlooking these cliffs, in the mist, there's ducks or geese or whatever flying, the music's playing, and then you hear the noises, the duck noises, the geese noises, whatever they are, the whatever it was, I don't know. But like that moment just sucked me in. And it hit me instantly in this weird, odd, visceral way. And I know I'm sounding so wanky with this shit. But I don't know, it's like I got transported almost in a nostalgic way. But of course, I've never actually witnessed anything like this. So maybe it unlocks some deep, shared memory in my monkey brain DNA. You never know. We see Roz getting tossed around in the water. I guess it's a river. She falls in. Another scene where she has to learn to climb the cliffs to escape the waves by mimicking the actions of a crab. And I think that these parts of the film, they're probably going to be the best parts of the film. Stuff where she's wandering the wild, getting her bearings, becoming more and more in touch with the land and the animals, slowly becoming one of them. We then see her on top of a mountain overlooking the island, and for some reason, this reminded me of Fortnite. I don't know why. But this also, for some reason, made me very nostalgic. And, you know, it's wild to me that we're now at the point that Fortnite can be considered nostalgic. After all, it's almost 7 years old. The kids that were whooping me and my brother back then, at age like 10 or 11 years old, they'd now be adults. Adults that can vote. God help us all. Father time spares no one. And really, for the rest of the trailer, it is just a collection of epic nature shots, epic action shots, and Roz interacting with animals, befriending a fox, becoming a surrogate mother to a little baby goose, getting beaten up by a bear, you know, normal stuff. And that's the stuff that I feel like is going to be the emotional heart of the film. Already I know that goodbye scene where Bright-Bill the goose flies away for the first time. It's going to be deeply sad and deeply moving. Not as much right now because here we're just going off the synopsis and the trailer, but in the context of the film when you're watching it, probably a safe bet that I'm going to cry and you're going to cry. You know it. And so, yeah, I think this is actually the perfect trailer because it shows you images that tell the story for you. Enough to make you invested in the film and the characters, but without spoiling anything. We get 3 brief shots of the supposed invasion by her manufacturers trying to bring her back to civilization, but that's it. Like, there's nothing else shown. And you don't get the dialogue, you don't get the explanation, you don't get the context. And so they've managed to show this skeleton plot with no context, no dialogue, none of the drama, and yet it's drawing people in, it's making them excited, and it's building up the hype for this movie. So hell yeah, big W for DreamWorks. It looks like a great year for animation in general. I'm really, really excited for this movie. Can't wait. And so, yeah, nothing really much else to say. Of course, I'll just remind you that these have just been my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of this trailer? Did you like it? Hate it? You hyped for the movie? Do you know the story? You know what's going on? Understand anything? I'm honestly curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.